Hi guys, it's Kelly here, and I am back with another video for Trinity Stamps. I can't believe we're already doing snow scenes, guys. Crazy. So I'm using the Snowman set, the Frosty Friends Forever, this embossed edges, hills and slopes. I think I use this for every card, like every scene card that I do. I'm using this thing. It's so good. It's a repeat one. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and lay out my stamps. I'm going to stamp them in some ink that is safe for alcohol markers because that's what I'm going to be coloring with. And as you may have guessed it, when you're doing a snow scene, there is quite a bit of white space because snow is white and all that jazz. So you kind of have to do a little bit of thinking outside of the box and ways to add color. So first things first, I like to shade my snow, not with grays, but with some cooler, like blue violets, blues. You could do blue greens. So that's what I'm doing here. These trees, by the way, are from the Snowmen set, which again, I can see myself using many different ways. But anyway, at the bottom, they're clearly like dug, like they're down in the snow. So I'm adding a little bit of shading there. I'm not covering up all of the white. I'm just adding enough so that we have those shadows. These are like little glaciers. Now I'm showing you them. I did not end up using them in this particular scene, but I am showing you how I colored them. I have another idea for those. And you guys know I have pretty much endless ideas for scene cards. Because I love the little stories that they can tell. So you will be seeing that in another card, probably with this bear as well. But anywho, so for those ones, I went more the blue-green route. But any of those you can use to add color to your snow, to your ice, those types of things, and create more interest so that it isn't just flat white, or kind of like a, dingy gray kind of color. Now this is sometimes I do this for my clouds where I will shade with a little bit of cool gray and then I'll go over top of it with one of these colors, more like color glazing, and that works nicely too. But because we have limited colors with the things that we're coloring, especially since there's penguins in here that are also black and white, you do want to see what you can add in there to make your scene more interesting with your colors. So here for the trees, I opted to do some more true greens versus yellow greens. You can color them whatever one you prefer. We're adding shadows where 2 points meet and where one object lays on top of the other. So because this is an evergreen tree, you can see how they're each section is laying on the next section. So we're making sure that we get our darkest color up there where they'd be meeting at the trunk of the tree. And then from there, I'm just kind of flicking out the color that's going to help give us that shape, but it's also going to help us with the blending. And then this one also has two little smaller trees on either side. And while I won't be doing nearly as much, there's just not a lot of real estate. Like the flicking isn't necessarily as important with the smaller ones. I did make sure to leave enough room to get all three of the colors on there. So my mid-tone, which I will typically tell you guys, this is the one that you usually see the most of, is whatever your mid-tone is. And that is going to be the case for this as well. So we're doing that same flicking, going right over our darkest color. And then for our lightest color, you can either go over the darkest color and the mid-tone, or you can do what I'm doing, which is going in from the edges. And instead of flicking down, I'm flicking up into the color because alcohol markers are transparent. Sometimes you'll have lighter colors that remove a little bit of color from darker colors. So I want to flick that up into the darker shadowed areas and hopefully create a fourth transition color. For the tree bark, I chose 3 colors. Was this overkill? Absolutely. You could color this with 2 colors, or even 1 and be totally fine. And people probably wouldn't even really notice. For the penguins, even though they're black and white. These cute little penguins are clearly having tons of fun sliding down this little hill. And so we do want to add some shadows so we can enhance the way that they're like the shapes their bodies are in, especially like this one who's like kind of flat on his back. His little belly is like his chin's tucked down into his little belly. The one who is stuck in the snow and all we can see is his little tushy and his little feet. We want to add some shadows into there. And now I chose to color my polar bear white. However, that is adding more white to the scene. You can color him white, brown, gray, black, whatever colors bears come in or colors that they don't. It's your card. Do what makes you happy. But I did choose to go with the white because I wanted my sky, which is my ink blending, to help me pop off this white. So here I'm using the same colors. I just added a little more, I added a C5 in because we do have a little bit more area to shade here. But again, that white of the paper is my lightest color. So in order to make sure that he appears white, we're only adding in the shadows. That's the trick with coloring anything white. You just want to put in the shadows and you still want to maintain that white area. That is going to be your actual lightest color, your highlight color. For the little penguins, for their beaks and their feet, I chose some brighter oranges, and I'm also going to choose some brighter colors for their scarves and hats. This is, again, another way that you can bring some more color into our kind of all white scene that we have going on. And I chose paler colors for the sky, but I went with brighter colors for my animals because ultimately they are the focal point. So I want them to be cute and eye-catching, but that sky is really going to be a huge supporting actor of our entire scene card, and it might be a little bit hard to see until we get it all together, but you can really create a wow, that looks so cool, just by pairing more your colors together with this white, something that's going to work really nicely together. So yeah, I can't believe I think one of the times that we talked recently, I told you that it had been really mild weather. And so I was having a hard time kind of getting into the season. Like, I'm shocked that it's going to be Thanksgiving with just in a little bit of time. We did make it through Jelly Bean's 3rd birthday party. Crazy. I can't believe that she's already 3. Anybody else have that? Like, where you're just like, she's my last baby. I know she's my last baby. And it just seems like it's going by faster than it ever has. But she's so funny. She's so cute. She has been sick this week as well. So that's kind of been taking my, my normal game plan and just throwing it out the window. Have you ever heard that saying, like, you make plans and God laughs? Like, that was how my week was this week. There was no way I was sticking with any of my plans. So let's talk about the card here. You do want to make sure that you kind of get all of your coloring done with their bellies and their faces, all of that white area, as well as any of their accessories before you go in with the black and the dark grays. Because if you have the black and the dark grays down first, and then you go in and you try to color your belly white or color your hat yellow, there's a chance that you're going to bump right up against it and drag it right in, or there's a chance that it might bleed into, especially with these being a little bit smaller, that risk of putting down too much ink and having it kind of bleed into the next image, like that line, bleed over the line, is pretty high. So I always, try to make sure that I do my coloring lightest colors to darkest colors, I'm not perfect about that. Sometimes I just get really excited and forget. But if I'm coloring something white on a card, I do generally try to knock that out first. Even with just like the holidays coming, like candy canes are red and white. I would not want to do my white after I colored the red. Have I done it? Yes. Is it scary? Absolutely. So here I'm also adding just a little bit more darkness to his nose, just to make that a little bit more solid. And then just for a little bit of character, like they've been out playing in the snow. I'm adding a little blush to their cheeks and my polar bear's ear. So then here is the coordinating dies. I'm going to go ahead and cut all of these out with their coordinating dies. I did end up, like I said, I did not use those little like glacier, what's the other word for glaciers? Ice pieces? That's not right. What is it? I don't know. And it's like a really easy word and it's just eluding me. Okay, well, we're not going to get stuck on it. We're just gonna move on. Somebody's gonna put it in the comments. I'm gonna be like, yeah, yeah. Why was that so hard for me to come up with? But anyway, so here in the edges and slopes, there's kind of like a wavy one, and then there's this one that's more rounded, like more of a round hill. So this is the one I'm going to use. And I'm going to create this super steep hill where basically I have one penguin who's come flying off the hill and fell into the snow head first. I have one little bear who ended up getting all turned around and, kind of went down face first. Tushy up in the air, and then I'm gonna have these two little penguins coming down. This mark that I'm doing here is really just for my ink blending, so I know how far, like I need to make sure that the ink blending goes. And then here what you see me doing is I'm just using a piece of low-tack tape. This is Pixie tape. I'm using this to mask my skyline. Now, ultimately, I really didn't need to do that, because the tree die cut will completely cover this, but I wasn't 100% sure that it would. So now let's talk about the ink blending, the scene. First things first, when I'm doing snow, again, same thing as I told you with the alcohol markers, I like to add dimension to my snow with some blue violets, some blue greens, some blues. So for this one, I went with the shaded lilac and the salvage patina. So I did the shaded lilac first, went over that with my salvage patina. And this is going to help create a little bit of shadow in my snow, a little bit of interest, but it's also going to add that color into our snow scene to make it look more interesting. I'm going to do the same thing with our hill, but I'm kind of going to add it at an angle. I want the slope part, the rounded part of our hill, to stay white, because that white is going to pop off against our sky color. So I want to add the shadow to kind of like down and to the right of it, so that way it looks like, there is a little bit more color, a little bit more dimension. Now here I've just switched the side that the tape is on, and I'm going to start creating my sky. You can absolutely do your sky any color you want. But I have found when I am doing a snow scene, if you make the sky multiple colors, now nobody knows whether this is sunrise or sunset, because, we're doing some more pastel tones. And if you don't have a lot of pastel tones, you can do what I did in the beginning. I had my little blending buddy with the yellow. Typically I would have used Squeeze Lemonade. That would have been the lightest distress color, but I couldn't find it. So I just used the blender that I normally use like mustard seed with, and I didn't re-ink it. I only used what was left on the blending brush, and that was pale enough to carry it. So if you don't have a lot of pale colors, that's okay. See if you can use the ink that's left over from previous ink blendings. So then from there, I blended that into the Kitsch Flamingo. Another good one for that would have been like the Saltwater Taffy. But Then I left a little gap, just a little gap so I wouldn't create a purple, and did the salvage patina and then darkened that up a bit with the salty ocean. So now we have this really dynamic, really colorful sky. And now look at how that slope of the snow like pops off of the sky. Then once we get all of our little characters in place, here you can see the tree. Now this whole scene is really starting to come together, and the sky is helping to really sell it and really make it more interesting. So once I have everything laid out, you'll notice that the die cut portion is hanging off. That's absolutely fine. I have no issue with that. I knew when I cut it that I was going to have to trim it down because I wanted to be able to wiggle the angle to something that worked for me. So I'm not even sweating that. I'm just going to trim it right off. Then here with the bear, I did position him so his head was kind of a little bit further down and his tushy was a little bit further up. So I could really sell that like he slid down and ended up, face first. And then here, these are going to go ahead and get it here just flat down. The little penguin that has flown off and landed upside down. We're going to add that tree back in. Now, I do want to say, if you had completely like taped off the sky all the way across, you could use this and the other tree and just like the little penguins to show them kind of playing or whatever, just be getting more comfortable with scenes in general for these little critters. Like, don't be afraid to play around with them. And even if you just do a regular horizon line where it's just straight across, you can still use these other tricks to make your scenes really interesting until you get more comfortable with trying out different layouts. So here, trimmed that off once I glued it down. I'm also going to trim off the little bear's scarf and a portion of the tree that's hanging over. Love the way that this is looking so far. I think it's super fun. We didn't have, I don't know, did you guys have hills like this when you were like kids? I didn't have a gigantic hill like this for sledding, but we did for bike riding. So like, and we live in Ohio, so obviously you can only ride your bike for certain months out of the year. But we did, one of our neighbors had a super, super steep hill, and thankfully they would let us like go down their driveway. But it was like one of those dare situations to go down their driveway because it was super steep. So here I added a little bit of shadow underneath my bear, but then I also, these little like kind of streaky lines, I wanted to give the indication that like they clearly have been sliding down this path. And so I didn't make them all symmetrical. I didn't make them all the same. Some are in the middle. Some are kind of tucked behind the characters. And then I did go back in and add the little shadows underneath them. But I just really wanted to kind of play up that scene that they're all, sliding down this portion of the hill. And that helps to bring it forward, to bring the hill forward and then push that sky and tree to the background. So that way that our cute little critters still are the focal point, even though all the color is pretty much in the sky. So now here, this is just a me personal thing. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. I don't love the white outline of a die cut, so I always blend mine into my scenes. So for this, I just, color around the edges. I typically, because I'm very, like I use my alcohol markers every day, I can eyeball it, but they have a color chart if you're not 100% sure on what color you can use. Also, don't be afraid to like layer colors. You can absolutely layer colors to get the color that you need. I do that quite often. So here, this says sledding by to say hi, and this is from the Bunny Slope set. They really have a lot of really great winter sets that work together. So I'm doing the sledding by to say hi because I thought that was super fun. Now I'm going to add some shimmer to our hill, to the rest of our snow. Because when it's out, if you're out in the sunshine, like it's shimmering, the snow is shimmering, it's reflecting the sunlight back. And then in order to accent our our little guys. I'm adding some white highlights. I also did, I can't remember if I showed it or not. I apologize. I did a little polka dot on the bear's scarf. The white gel pen is going to come back and do another job for us here in a minute. But I did use these Aussie Opal rhinestones, really, really pretty blue, pale blue, to accent my sentiment. So kind of catches the eye, working at odd numbers. And then I wanted something that was going to bring more interest to my snow scene, but I didn't want to completely blow out my images. And so what I did was kind of like a soft falling snow. And doing the soft falling snow with the white gel pen basically means I draw some bigger circles, and then whatever's left in the pen, I kind of dot around. You do want to go right over your images in order to show that the snow is falling in front of them. But then that way it doesn't detract from the scene, it adds to it versus like a blizzard. So I hope this helps you guys, make some decisions about your ink blending scenes, that it really inspires you. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I appreciate your time, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye.